Dana came out and he was talking to TMZ, and they asked him about the heavyweights. Hey, what's up with Stipe? What's up with Ngannou? And I was wondering that too. I mean, that was hot and heavy for a minute there, and then kind of just went away. And Dana said, we're looking at doing it in March. Okay, great. Not a huge statement, but there was a little bit to draw from it because it's extremely relevant when the heavyweights are going to fight, meaning Ngannou and Stipe, as to the timetable for the return of Jon Jones, right? I mean, that's the other part of it. Dana has said that when Jon returns, he will walk right into a championship. I was never clear on the fact if that meant he had to walk into a championship, as though we're going to wait, or if that meant he's eligible, and if that is what he likes, I will happily show him that respect for changing weight classes. I was just never clear on that, and I decided to interpret, and I think you guys interpret it the same way as I did, that no, Jon will walk into a title shot, which means at an earliest. In a best case scenario, I mean, they still got to work things out with Jon and get this whole thing situated, but at an earliest, he will not return until Stipe and Ngannou figure their business out, right? And that's not as simple as you think. What if Ngannou beats Stipe? Now, those guys are one apiece, and all of a sudden you want to see that fight. I mean, we see this happen all the time. We do. We saw this happen when the biggest fight you could make in the whole sport was Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier, part 3. Cormier gets bumped by Stipe, and all of a sudden, he never talks about Jon Jones again. All he wants is Stipe in a rematch. I mean, I'm just sharing with you, and I'm speculating. But what if? I mean, it's one of those things. And so, imagine you're Jon Jones, and Dana goes, all right, we got this whole thing figured out. You're returning. You've stayed in the pool. Everything's cool in the gang. And, figure next summer. Take some time. Get big. You're going in for a title shot. So if you're Jon, you're banking on a lot of things. First off, that Ngannou doesn't win, and in some kind of fashion that fans are all of a sudden in a demand for a rematch, or there's some kind of weird controversy. You guys will remember the night, just by example, but when Vitor beat Randy Couture. Do you guys remember that? Vitor threw a punch at Randy Couture, main event world championship. The punch did not land, and it ended the fight. What happened was there was a stitching on the glove, and I'm talking a millimeter stitching on the glove, but that stitching is basically like fishing line, okay? Think of that. It's like a very hard plastic to hold that glove together. So it was sticking off the glove. So as Randy slipped this punch by a millimeter, the stitching caught his eye, ripped his eyelid off. Fight has to be stopped. Vitor's the champion. Fair game by Vitor, but Vitor is now the champion by TKO on a punch that didn't land. You see where they had to rematch that. There was nothing you could do. No matter who you told is going to get the next opportunity, when a fight ends like that, you have to rematch them, okay? What if, right? In the game of what if you're Jon Jones and you're sitting on ice in the back end of a career as it is, or even in the prime of a career, either way, who wants to sit out for a year, right? Not to mention, this is the third time you sat out twice in the principal's office. Now you're electing to sit out. Do you want to wait for summer for a best case scenario when you have to have Ngannou and Stipe? Anything can happen. The scariest guy in the sport against the best guy in the sport, or the scariest guy in the division against the best guy in the division. We can at least agree on that. Do you want to put all of your chips in and wait for that? Or you want to go, hey man, give me somebody else? So I only offer you that Dana announcing that Stipe Ngannou is looking like March is another way of saying in no scenario does it happen before March, which is another way of saying you're pushing out the Jon Jones date. Okay. Another interesting thing that happened was Cannonier Whitaker. And I had to think on this one for a little bit. Let me tell you what happened here. So Cannonier discloses he breaks his arm. Now, Cannonier was one of my performances of the night. I really thought of MVP of the night. I get that it goes to Khabib. I thought number 2 was Cannonier. I thought he was outmatched from Jump Street. I thought he looked tougher than all hell. I thought there was times when he could have stayed there and got TKO'd. He found a way off his canvas and kept swinging in a stand-up battle with one of the best strikers the sport's ever seen. And then we find out he has a broken arm. That then allegedly qualifies Whitaker to fight Adesanya, to which Whitaker said, and I quote, "I'm not stoked about it, but I will do things differently." Now that's interesting. That seems very anti-promotional. To ask the guy who's about to fight somebody and he says, "I don't know that I want to fight." He said, "I'm not stoked." And then the more I thought about it, I thought, or is that great promotion? Because it's never been done before and we love things that are different. And how about a really honest guy, particularly when he adds on the back of it, "I will do things different." I just thought it was very interesting. I don't know if I love it or hate it, but it's one of the two. I either really like that statement where he was just openly honest, said, "I'm the number one guy and nobody else can apparently beat me, but I don't know how much I want to deal with this guy," from a former champion. I thought it was very interesting. I might hate it, but I also might love it. You guys play with it. I'd love to know your response.